Want to speak more of your target language? Then you'll need to know more words and phrases. Except the problem is, memorizing word lists is painful and boring. But the good news is, you don't have to memorize for hours. You can glance through our printable visual flashcards and easily master over 1,500 of the most common words. And in this guide, you'll discover how to get free access to visual flashcards, why these flashcards help you acquire words faster than typical word lists or digital flashcards, and how to learn words fast with the flashcards. But first, if you don't yet have access to our language learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. So let's jump in. I'll guide you through our learning system so you get to see exactly what's inside and our members-only study tools. Okay, so what are visual flashcards? Our visual flashcards are printable, illustrated flashcards that teach you the 1,500 most common words across 60 topics. So if you're a member, you already have access. If not, now is your chance to get them for free for a limited time only. We'll close down access soon. So to access these flashcards, sign up for a free account and then go to this page and download these PDFs. So we'll click the Download Now button, and you will find when the download is ready, a big folder of all of the different flashcards that you can use. So open them up, and then we'll go to the folder where we can choose our topic. So in this case, I'll open this one about the lake. So when you open up your flashcards, you'll see a bunch of different images, yeah? And if they are upside down when you open up the file, don't be worried, that's normal and it's okay. So when you open up your flashcards, you'll choose the one that is the most interesting for you, and then make sure that you print them out in two-sided or double-sided format so that there's an image on both sides of the paper so that you can flip over the flashcard, right? So once they're all printed out, you can cut them out and then use them to start learning. So make sure you visit the link in the description to get access to all of these right now. Then next, I want to talk a little bit about how you can use these to learn words fast. But first, I want to talk about how people learn words. Most popularly, it's probably through cramming and memorization, right? But the best way to learn anything is not actually to cram. Rather, you should review the words for just a few minutes a day, every day. And that daily repetition is what locks the language into your memory, and you get used to the words like it's your own native language, right? So that's something that you can do with visual flashcards. You can print them out as physical cards, and you can easily go through them a few minutes a day. And also, if it's physical, it's much easier to reach for it and use it than an app that's just kind of somewhere in like the third screen of your iPhone, right? All of these flashcards also include an image for each word. So your brain can easily create a connection between the image and the word, and this helps you to remember it better instead of just relying on text all the time, which is the case with most digital flashcards and word lists. Okay, so after printing and cutting out your flashcards, there are a few different ways that you can use these visual flashcards to study. So one of the ways, of course, that you can do this is just to go through the flashcards and review them for a few minutes a day to refresh your memory. But I also want to talk a little bit about some different strategies that you can use with these cards so you get different types of practice. So one thing that you can do to get some speaking practice, of course, is to make sure that you read the word out loud. So don't just look at it and read it in your mind. Make sure that you read the word out loud so you actually say, in this case, bench and escalator and kiosk as you look at the picture that's on the visual flashcard. So this is one way that you can get some speaking practice. Another thing that you can do to make sure that you understand and you have good recall is to flip the cards over and take a look at just the picture and then try to remember the meaning. Try to recall the meaning and say it out loud. So that means without reading it. And of course, if you forget, you can flip it over to check. But again, you can do this to practice just your recall. So looking just at the picture, I think it's escalator. Am I correct? Yes, great. Okay. So if you get it wrong, of course, you can put it to the back of the stack and then try again so that you're giving yourself the opportunity to repeat those cards that were challenging for you, yeah? So again, you can just use the card, flip it over, and then get the answer that you need and then put it to the back of the stack. So these are a couple of different ways that you can use the cards to do speaking practice, to get some recall skull practice. And again, these are just ways that you can use the cards alone. You could also use the cards together with your friend. Have a friend test you if you want to as well. Another thing that you can do, depending on the card set that you're using, you can actually place these cards on the objects that they represent in your house. So for example, if you have a flashcard that's for something like your computer or for your refrigerator or something like that, you can put the flashcard on the object that it represents so that you always remember to practice that vocabulary word when you use that object or when you see that item. So these are a few different ways that you can make sure that you quickly memorize these words after seeing them a few times and getting used to practicing with them every day. So, if you want to learn the language and get access to these learning tools and our learning system, sign up for a free lifetime account right now. Just click the link in the description to get your free lifetime account. Hi everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Marilia. Hi Marilia, I hope I said your name correctly. Marilia says, hi Alicia, what's the difference between to bring and to take? In this sentence, which one is right? When you come to my place, bring or take your book with you. Thanks a lot. Nice question. Okay, bring and take in this kind of situation are, of course, very similar. But the feeling is that when you bring something, it sounds like you pick up something or you hold something from outside the location you are going to visit, and you continue to hold that thing until you get there. Take, on the other hand, sounds like the opposite. You take something, pick something up and hold it in a location and remove it from that location to go somewhere else. So in this sentence, your example was, when you come to my place, bring your book with you, right? So in that sentence, it sounds most natural to say, bring your book with you. When you come to my place, bring your book with you. On the other hand, we would use take if we want to talk about the opposite situation. Like, when you leave my place, make sure to take your book with you. That sounds most natural. I do want to mention, of course, this is not a 100% perfect rule. There are some situations in which we might use bring or take, and these are generally when we're talking about something like outside our home. Like, we're thinking about something from our home at the moment, and we are thinking about going someplace. In those situations, when we are thinking about our destination, we could use bring or take. For example, I need to bring lunch to school today, or I need to take lunch to school today. We might use either one of those when we're talking about going to a destination. But on the other hand, when you are talking about someone else coming to you, coming to your destination, as in your example sentence, it sounds more natural to say, bring your book to my place, or bring a lunch to my place. We wouldn't say take, because it sounds like that thing is starting where the speaker is, right? And then going somewhere else. So this is kind of the feel with bring and take. Bring sounds like something coming from outside to a destination, and take tends to sound more like something from inside going outside. So for that reason, when you're talking about, in my earlier example, bringing a lunch to school or taking a lunch to school, both of them sound pretty natural there. But when you're talking about inviting someone else into your space, it sounds more natural to say, bring blah, blah, blah to my place. So I hope that this helps break down the differences between bring and take in this situation. So I hope that this helps you understand the differences between bring and take. As I hope you can see, it depends a lot on the place where the speaker begins, or the speaker's location. So thanks so much for sending this question along. Okay, let's move on to our next question. Next question comes from Cyril. Hi, Cyril. Cyril says, hi, Alicia. Can you explain to me the difference between these two sentences? I meant to do that, and I wanted to do that. Do the two sentences mean the same thing? Thanks, Alicia. Okay, great question. I meant to do that, and I wanted to do that. Great question. They are a little bit different. Meant, so to mean, means to plan to do something. If you say, I meant to do that, it means I planned to do that. So if you think about this as I planned to do that, maybe you can see the difference between I wanted to do that, right? So when we say I wanted to do that, it doesn't always mean I planned, right? Like maybe a movie, right? Like, oh, I wanted to see that movie, right? We maybe didn't create a plan to see the movie, yeah? If we say, however, I meant to see that movie, it sounds like you made a plan, maybe in your mind. You thought, oh, Friday at 6 o'clock, I'm gonna go. And you didn't. You forgot, or you got busy, or something like that. Meant sounds more like there was an intention, sounds more like there was a plan in your mind, or maybe you had some idea about that thing, and it just didn't happen in some cases. Wanted to do that sounds like there was no plan, just a desire to do something. So I also want to talk about an interesting way that we use I meant to do that, where we kind of try to cover up mistakes. So for example, let's say you are playing some kind of sport, like, I don't know, skateboarding or skiing or snowboarding or something. And let's say you try to do a trick, but you fall. And so what sometimes people will do is after they fall, they'll say something like this as a joke. They'll say, I meant to do that, which makes it sound like I planned to fall down. This is a very, very like joking way to say, this was all part of my plan, to make it seem cool and to make it funny. Of course, we don't usually mean to fall down, right? But sometimes we like to use I meant to do that as a way to cover up a mistake. Like, this was planned. This was my idea all along. Yeah. This was my idea. I meant to do that. Sometimes people use it in this way. We generally don't use I wanted to do that. Maybe some people will use I wanted to do that. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to do. People might use it in this way, but we tend to use I meant to do that a bit more to cover up our mistakes in this way. So this is the difference between I meant to do that and I wanted to do that. Meant to sounds like there's some intention, some kind of plan behind that idea. Even if it didn't happen, they just want to express some intention, yeah? With wanted to do that, it just sounds like a desire, but probably no plan there. So that's the difference between these two sentences. I hope this answers your question. Thanks for sending it along. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Jovi Chavez. Hi, Jovi. I hope I said your name right. Jovi says, hello, Alicia. What tense should I use to describe what happened in a dream? Great question. Oh, that's such an interesting question. So dreams, yeah, when we go to sleep at night and we see those images in our head, how do we talk about them? So we usually use past tense to do this. We'll say, usually at the beginning, I had a dream about you last night, or I had a dream about this last night, or I saw this in a dream last night. So those are some ways that we usually introduce, like the beginning of the conversation or start the story. We usually use past tense. You know, I went to the supermarket with my mom, or whatever, or I saw my favorite actor sitting in a diner, whatever it is. We usually use simple past tense to talk about those dream situations, because they're finished, they're done, they're over. I suppose there are some people who might use like a present progressive or a similar grammar pattern if they want to talk about like an action scene that happened in their dream. Like you might hear someone say like, oh, I was fighting Ashton Kutcher at a gas station in my dream last night. You might hear something like that with I was fighting in a gas station, right? So if you have some kind of like action scene, something like that, you might hear people using those kind of progressive forms as well. But generally, when we talk about our dreams, we just use simple past tense to do that. So go crazy. I know that everybody likes to share an interesting dream from time to time, so usually we do that with simple past tense. Thanks very much for this interesting question. Okay, that is everything that I have for this week. Thank you, as always, for sending your great questions. Remember, you can send them to me at EnglishClass101.com/ask-Alicia. That is a very long URL, so please find the link for this in the description. Send me your questions to the official question submission page. I will 100% read your question. If you send it on a YouTube comment or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, I probably won't see it and I can't put it together with other questions. It's best if you send it to the page. Do that. Click the link. Okay? So if you enjoyed this lesson, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this week's episode of Ask Alicia, and I will see you again next time. Bye! Hey everybody, welcome back to Ask Alicia, the weekly series where you ask me questions and I answer them. Maybe. Let's get to your first question this week. First question this week comes from Jovi Chavez. Hi Jovi. Jovi says, hello Alicia. About storytelling, what is the best tense I should use when writing a novel, short story, or feature story? Because I usually notice authors tend to use past tense, mostly in novels, but others say it's better to use present tense because it's more powerful for readers. So I'm kind of torn. Thanks in advance. I enjoy watching you. Take care. Good question. So with storytelling, it's kind of tricky because there's no, as you suggested, there's no perfect answer for every story, right? For every story you want to tell, if it's a news story or a novel or a short story or a poem, maybe, right? So there's no one perfect answer here. But what you really need to think about is the reader's experience, right? What do you want the reader to feel? So for example, a general kind of guide you can follow is that if you are reporting something, like a news story, for example, just use past tense, right? So you need to report the facts of a story. It's past tense generally when we watch the news on TV or on the internet, and it's generally past tense when we read articles written about the news. But you might have noticed that occasionally there are parts of the story that are written in present tense, right? It'll be simple present tense something like a schedule maybe, and then there'll be part that's like a progressive tense section as well. So there are some choices that writers make to choose kind of a different feel just for a moment in the story. So we do this a lot in just everyday, very casual storytelling in our speech, and this also kind of goes into our writing as well. If there's a moment that you really want the reader to feel, like you want them to feel a moment of action, for example, or like they're really in the moment in that story, feeling something that the character is feeling in the story, the writer might choose to shift to a present tense grammar structure. So they do this because it sounds like it's happening right now. When we use past tense, it tends to feel like just a report of something that happened. When we use that present tense grammar structure, we can kind of create a feeling of something happening right now. So this is the reason that you might notice that there kind of tend to be a few different tenses that we use generally for storytelling. But generally, yeah, we choose to focus mainly on a past tense way of telling the story, or in some cases, a present tense way of telling the story. You might see, for example, something called choose your own adventure stories. If you have read any kind of English book that's intended for young people, usually like teenagers, you might see a lot of those choose your own adventure stories, which are books where you can change the story, change the storyline, depending on which page you turn to. You have to make decisions as a reader. Those books are usually written in a present tense grammar structure because they want the reader to feel that they are experiencing the story and making decisions for themselves that change the story. So that's an example, an extreme example of when we might use a present tense grammar structure to tell the story. But generally, I would say when I read novels and when I read, of course, news articles, short stories, essays, and so on, they tend to use more past tense, and then there are moments of present tense here and there, just to kind of maybe emphasize certain parts of the story. So there's not a perfect answer, always use this tense for this situation. It's more about, like what I said at the beginning, thinking about what you want your reader to feel. So I hope that this answers your question. I hope that this gives you kind of a guide to think about as you continue in your writing. So thanks very much for this interesting question, and good luck with your storytelling. Okay, let's move on to your next question. Next question comes from Shoko. Hi, Shoko. Shoko says, I want to know the difference between how about you and what about you, and the difference between how do you think and what do you think. How should I use them? Okay, so how about you and what about you? Let's start there. So how about you and what about you? We tend to use a lot in like those self-introduction situations, like, this is what I do for work. What about you? Or how about you? So in kind of this surface level, like self-introduction situation where it's very clear, the conversation topic, you can use how about you and what about you in kind of the same way. It's very clear, right, what we're asking the other person for. But in kind of deeper conversations, how about you and what about you take on kind of different feels. So when you're in a business meeting situation, for example, and you say to someone like, how about you? It sounds kind of unnatural. Even if you want that person's opinion, it sounds a little bit unnatural to say, how about you? because it's sort of like that's a question that we ask when the answer is very easy. Yeah, like what's your job or what are your hobbies? It feels like a very surface level question, or maybe it's a question that we can kind of already expect the answer to. It's going to be an easy to understand answer. On the other hand, what about you? Sounds more like it's inviting the other person to share some opinions a little bit more than how about you. So if you're in a business meeting sharing proposals or sharing your opinions about proposals, and you say something like, well, I think X, Y, and Z about this proposal. What about you? It sounds kind of like you're inviting the person for their opinion. In my case, I feel that how about you sounds a little more surface level. I don't feel the same sense that someone is inviting me to share my opinion as much with how about you. It could be the case. It just sounds like a more casual kind of question in that situation. So I think that that would be kind of the simplest way I could break down the differences between how about you and what about you. What about you, for me, tends to feel more like you're inviting someone to share a little bit more depth than just how about you. But again, depending on your connection with your coworkers and your friends and your teammates, maybe you use them more similarly. But I want to go on to the next part of your question, which is how do you think and what do you think? First, I want to just express that how do you think is not a pattern that we use as a set question. We don't say how do you think. We sometimes use how do you think this could be done? How do you think blah, blah, blah? We could use how do you think as the beginning of a question, like how do you think we could get to the beach this weekend? Or how do you think we could save enough money for our vacation in the next 3 months, you know? So you could use how do you think as the beginning of a question, but we do not use how do you think as a question asking about the other person's opinion. So remove that from your vocabulary if you use that. We don't say, how do you think? What do you think is the correct question to ask here when you want someone's opinion. So dinner plans, what do you think? Or vacation plans, what do you think? Great, ask that question. But we do not use how do you think to ask for someone's opinion unless it's at the beginning of a bigger question. How do you think blah, blah, blah? How do you think we should do this? Or how do you think I should style my hair? And so on. So that's the beginning of a how question. So I hope that that's a pretty quick answer to this how do you think, what do you think difference. So in sum, how about you and what about you? Very, very similar questions. I feel what about you tends to elicit or tends to get a deeper response and invites a deeper opinion sharing than how about you. And what do you think is the correct question to ask when asking for someone's opinion? How do you think should only be used as the beginning of a longer question? So thanks very much for sending this question, Shoko. I hope that I answered it. But let's move on to our next question. Next question comes from Roman Matovsky. Hi, Roman. Roman says, when do I have to use bear and when do I have to use have? Interesting question. Bear versus have. This might be a new verb for some people. To bear, B-E-A-R. So the same spelling as like the very big dangerous creature that lives in the forest. But to bear something usually means to carry something, often very heavy, or to carry something emotionally very heavy. So it has this feeling of weight. Oh gosh, it's like something that is really tough to carry in our heart or physically too. So when we bear something, we have something that is very important to us, like a physical object that is very important, very valuable, like maybe it's something that belongs to a king or a queen, like he is the ring bearer is a good example, a really common example in modern weddings. Like the person who carries the rings at the wedding is called the ring bearer. So the person who bears, who holds the rings. So the rings are very important. They have special value, right? So we use to bear when we're talking about things that are very valuable and very important, or maybe they're also just really, really heavy. But we tend to use it more, I feel, when they're kind of important things. So I want to talk now about the bear that we use to talk about the emotions that we carry. We typically use these with negative or very challenging, difficult emotions, like grief or stress or intense responsibility. So here's an example sentence. We usually follow this to bear with a noun that refers to an emotional state. So for example, she bears the grief of her husband's passing. So in that sentence, grief is a noun, but it talks about those negative or those very difficult and challenging emotions connected to sadness and loss, right? So we tend to use bear when we talk about holding or keeping these very difficult emotions with us. So you might say, yeah, she bears this great responsibility in her work, or she has to bear a lot of stress in her job, something like that. We typically use it when we talk about things that are very, very challenging for us emotionally. So bear has a very kind of heavy meaning generally. It carries a lot of meaning because when we use it to talk about physical objects, they're very valuable or very important generally, or very heavy sometimes too. But we also use it to talk about those difficult and challenging emotions. So maybe you can see then have is a much more general verb, right? Have doesn't always mean carry either. I mean, we can use it to talk about everyday objects, right? I can say, I have my smartphone in my hand. I would not say, I bear my smartphone. That makes it sound like I have way too much importance on my smartphone. It's not that valuable. It's just a phone, right? So have is a much more general word. It's the one that we use when we talk about everyday objects. It's the one that we use when we want to just talk about something we own, right? We don't really say, I bear my car or something like that. It sounds way, way, way too important, it sounds really funny. It makes me laugh, right? So don't use bear for those everyday objects. Use I have a car, right? It sounds much more natural to use the verb have to talk about everyday objects and the things that we own. So I hope that this helps break down kind of the interesting uses of the verb to bear, because we have two main uses for that, for physical things and for emotional things. You might see this a lot in poetry and in other kind of more creative and artistic expressions, especially in writing. So thanks very much for this very interesting question. I hope that that answers it. All right, that is everything that I have for this week. So thank you, as always, for sending your great questions. Remember, you can send them to me at EnglishClass101.com/ask-Alicia. That is a very long URL, so please send them to the link in the description. You can find this link in the description. Send it there. I will definitely see your question. I will probably not see your question if you send it somewhere else. Sorry, there are just too many. So please send it to the official question submission page. I'm always on the lookout for great questions from you. Of course, if you liked this lesson, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Ask Alicia, and I will see you again next time. Bye!
Are you struggling to understand conversations in your target language? This video will improve your listening skills using practice dialogues. How do you know if your language skills are improving? Our team of teachers have designed a free quiz to determine your actual learning level. So click the link in the description to get your free assessment and unlock lessons that are right for you. In this lesson, you'll listen to a dialogue with the text. Second, you'll review the key vocabulary followed by the English translations. And finally, you'll review the dialogue with the text again to master what you learned. First, listen to the dialogue with the text on the screen.
My dad would love to be here now.
Why's that?
He's a U.S. history teacher, and Boston was central to the stabilization of the United States as a country.
Didn't the Tea Party happen in Boston? When the colonists dumped huge crates of tea into the river in protest against high taxes?
Exactly. Just gave the tea to the fish.
Now you will hear the key vocabulary, followed by the English translation.
Love.
Really enjoy.
Love. Love. Central.
Of, at, or forming the center.
Central. Central. Stabilization.
The state of being unlikely to change, fail, or decline.
Stabilization. Stabilization. Taxes.
A compulsory contribution to state revenue.
Taxes. Taxes. Crates.
Slated wooden cases used for transporting or storing goods.
Crates. Crates. Tea.
A hot drink.
Tea. Tea. River.
A large natural stream of water flowing to the ocean.
River. River. Protest.
A statement or action expressing disapproval or objection to something.
Protest. Protest. Against.
In opposition to.
Against. Against.
Finally, let's review the dialogue again. See if you can understand more this time.
My dad would love to be here now.
Why's that?
He's a U.S. history teacher, and Boston was central to the stabilization of the United States as a country.
Didn't the Tea Party happen in Boston? When the colonists dumped huge crates of tea into the river in protest against high taxes?
Exactly. Just gave the tea to the fish.
This is the end of the lesson. In this lesson, you improved your listening and mastered key vocabulary for everyday life conversation. Don't forget to click the link in the description to get your free assessment and unlock lessons that are right for your learning level. Keep practicing and move on to the next lesson.
Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this video, I'm going to share some sample questions you can use to self-check your study level. This is for beginners. When I say beginners, I mean around the A1 to A2 level of the CEFR. I hope that gives you a good idea of what level these kinds of questions are targeted for. You can use these questions to help you understand what to study next and what you already know. So I hope that this lesson will help you to be more efficient and able to choose your next study target. We'll go through a few different groups of questions one by one. So let's get started. First, let's talk about reading questions. So these are questions about your reading skills. You should ask yourself each of these questions. This is true for the entire lesson today. Ask yourself these questions and answer yes, no, or it's difficult. If the answer is yes, great, you can move on to another topic. If the answer is no, it might be a little too hard right now. If you say yes, but it's difficult, great, you can focus your energy on that point. So let's take a look at the first one. The first group is reading questions. So ask yourself, can I understand short, simple, written instructions? So short, simple, written instructions means something maybe from your friend, from a coworker, something you find online, maybe something you find in an equipment pamphlet. You buy a piece of machinery and you can find the instructions that are very simple. So ask yourself, can I understand short, written instructions? Another question to check your level is, can I understand simple rules, like safety rules? For example, if you go to a park or if you go to an office building or other big building, can you understand the rules on the sign there? Can you understand the rules about safety or the rules about things you should or should not do there? These are the kinds of things you can think about to answer this question. Next is, can I follow simple step-by-step directions? Can I follow simple step-by-step directions? This means, can you follow from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 and so on if you are reading the instructions or reading the directions? So this can be something very, very small and simple, like for example, creating an email account or creating an account online on a website. You can use something like that or something maybe in your life, like building something you buy from a furniture store maybe. So the key is following these simple step-by-step directions. Can you use your reading skills to do that? Okay, next is, can I understand the main point of simple written information, especially with a visual? What does this mean? So, can I understand the main point of simple written information? For example, a paragraph, a few sentences, or maybe a very short, simple article. Can you understand the main point of that information? Especially with a visual. A visual means a picture, or maybe a video, or an illustration, a drawing. Can you understand the main points of something like that? Yes, no, or it's a little difficult. Okay. Finally, the last sample question here is, can I find key information in advertisements, postcards, simple messages to me, and so on? Can I find key information in advertisements, so ads like you see on TV, you can read the information there, or you can read the information in a magazine or in a newspaper, those kinds of advertisements. Postcards or other similar pieces of mail. Simple messages like text messages or emails, and so on. So can you find the key information in those things? So ask yourself if you can do that. So these are some sample questions to help you understand what to focus on, what you need to work on, what you already know, and so on for your reading skills. Next, let's move along to talking about your writing skills. Here are some basic questions you can use to check your writing level. So that means, what should I study next for my writing skills, to develop my writing skills? First, very basic, can I write my name? Can I write my name? So you can ask yourself if you can write your name in English letters, of course, in the English alphabet. Also, another good one is, can I write a self-introduction? So using your name, a basic self-introduction. You can expand on this one, okay? Another good test, can I write my address? Can I write my address? So for example, on a postcard or another piece of mail, can you write your address on that? Next is, can I write a postcard? Can I write a postcard? So a postcard is a very short, simple message generally. We have one side is a picture, one side is a very short, simple message. So can you write a postcard? For example, where you are at that moment, or expressing a nice wish to the other person. So this is another good, simple test for your writing skills. The next question you can ask yourself is, can I give my personal details in a written message? Can I give my personal details in a written message? So what's personal details? For example, of course, your name, where you live, maybe your family members, your birthday, this kind of basic personal information. So this is kind of like a self-introduction, or maybe, for example, if you write an email to a company or to a school, can you explain who you are? So this is a good test of your basic written skills. Okay, next, can I write the date? Can I write the date? So that means the day, the month, and the year. Can I do that? And finally, can I write a short note with basic information? Can I write a short note with basic information? For example, if you need to share information with your coworker, with your friend, maybe with a study abroad, like host family member, if you need to share short information, can you write a simple note to do that? Or maybe it's a text message as well. Just a short memo with some information, some small information, like please buy eggs at the store, for example. Can you do that? So these are some sample questions to ask yourself about your writing skills. Again, if you say yes, 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 yes to these questions, that's great. That means you should move to the next thing or to another thing to focus your energy. If the answer is no, okay, so maybe it's a little difficult right now. For example, maybe this one is difficult, giving all your personal details in a written message. But maybe, for example, You can write a short note a little bit. You feel pretty confident. Okay, great. So focus on this until you feel really good about it. Yes, I can do this with no problem. And then maybe move on to the next topic. So this is how we look at each goal, each of these as goals, and focus our energy on those things until we can do them really well. Okay, let's move on to the next group. The next skill is speaking, your speaking skills. Here are some sample questions you can consider, you can think about to work on your speaking skills. First, can I make a basic request? Can I make a basic request? For example, when you go to a restaurant, can you order food at the restaurant? Or can you ask someone for something? Like, please give me that pen. Or can I borrow your computer? Those kinds of simple requests. Can you do them? Okay, next is, can I give someone something and share a short explanation? Can I give someone something and share a short explanation? So, for example, if you give someone a gift, can you explain the gift? For example, if you give someone a gift, can you say, I bought this because I thought of you, or I thought you would like this? Can you give a short explanation of the gift? Another situation you can think about is at work or at school. If you return something to someone, do you know how to explain that? For example, here's your computer, thank you for letting me use it. So can you give someone to something and give a short explanation? This is a good way to question, to consider your speaking skills. Next is, of course, can I introduce myself? Can I introduce myself? Of course, there's the very basic, my name is. That's great. That's the most basic level to introduce yourself. And you can level this up a little bit with personal details. So can you introduce yourself with some personal details? You can level up this question a bit. All right. The next sample question is, can I share personal details in a conversation? So you're speaking with someone, sharing personal details. So in this case, maybe you can talk about your hobbies a little bit. You can give your phone number. You can talk about your birthplace, your family members, and so on. So this is a good way to consider your speaking skills. Can I talk about this? Can I talk about this? Can I talk about this? Again, if the answer is, it's a little difficult, then you can focus on that point until it becomes easier. Keep practicing those points that are a little bit difficult. Okay, last is, can I ask about someone else's personal details? Can I ask about someone else's personal details? So that means, can you make a question to ask someone else about their life, about their hobbies, their job, their studies, and so on. So don't forget that you need to make questions to participate in conversations too. So these are some sample questions you can use to think about your level in terms of your speaking skills. Okay, great. Let's continue to listening. Listening. So first sample question is, can I understand the main topic of a slow, clear conversation? Can I understand the main topic of a slow, clear conversation? So if you're listening to study materials, English study materials, maybe you listen to a lot of slow audio, that's fine. Can you understand the main topic of those kinds of things? So ask yourself, yes, no, or maybe it's a little bit difficult for me. If the answer is yes, great. If it's difficult, think about why. Is it grammar? Is it vocabulary? Think about how to improve your understanding or how to find the main topic of the conversation. Okay, next. Can I understand someone's slow, clear description of weekend plans? Can I understand someone's slow, clear description of weekend plans? For example, if someone says, this weekend I'm going hiking with my friends. Can you understand something like that? Slow, clear, simple weekend plans. So again, answer yes, no, or a little bit. It's kind of difficult. Okay, next. Can I understand a simple suggestion? Can I understand a simple suggestion? For example, I think you should something something. Or why don't you something something? So can you understand a simple suggestion from someone else? Or maybe you hear one person make a suggestion to another person. Can you understand that suggestion? There are many ways to consider this point. So, can I understand a simple suggestion? Last sample question here. Can I understand the main topic of a news report on TV? Can I understand the main topic of a news report on TV? So don't worry about all the details of the news report. Just ask, can I understand the main topic? What is the focus topic of this story? Is it maybe the weather? Is it good news? Is it bad news? Is it business news? Is it news about the school in my neighborhood? Can you find the main topic? Can you use your listening skills to understand the main topic of a news report? So these are some sample questions you can ask yourself to check your level for your listening skills. Okay, great. Let's go to our last category, communication. So communication, of course, we have to put our skills together to communicate. We need to use our interpersonal skills, so our skills to connect with other people, right? So here are some sample questions you can ask yourself to check your communication skills, putting these things together. Okay, first is, can I understand and follow simple, clear instructions? Can I understand and follow simple, clear instructions? So this could be written instructions, as we talked about over here, and we could be listening to someone as well, maybe at the same time. So, can I understand and follow simple, clear instructions? This is a good way to check your communication skills. Okay, next, can I ask for and give directions? Can I ask for and give directions? So this is a very basic skill set, of course, being able to ask someone, for example, where is the station? Or where is the library? Or where is the restroom in this store? So being able to ask for directions is important. But also, can you give directions? So this is a great way to check your communication skills. Okay, next, can I talk about simple routine tasks? Can I talk about simple routine tasks? For example, what do you do every morning? Or what's your schedule every week? Or what do you do every afternoon? So can you talk about those simple routine tasks you always do? That's a good way to check your communication skills about your basic responsibilities. Okay, last sample question. Can I agree and disagree with others in slow, clear conversation? Can I agree and disagree with others? That means when you hear an opinion, or when someone shares an opinion, maybe they write an opinion in a text message, can you agree? Can you express, yeah, I agree, or I think so too? Or can you disagree? Can you say, I'm not sure, or I don't think so? Can you agree and disagree in a conversation, in a spoken conversation or a written conversation? So again, these focus on putting together your skills to focus on communication. Okay, great. So these are some sample questions you can use to check your own level. This is perfect for beginners. I think this is a great place for beginners to start. And of course, if your answer to all of these questions is yes, then it might be time to move into some more challenging study material. That's great. That means you're making progress. Also, please remember, you can come back to check your answers to these questions again. So for example, if you said, no, I can't understand short, simple written instructions today, you might focus on your reading skills, come back next week or come back in 2 weeks, look at this question again and think, oh, now I can. So you can use these questions to track your progress, to understand that you are leveling up. So this is really helpful for motivation too. But again, if you answer yes to all these questions, consider finding some more challenging material for yourself. Okay, so I hope that this lesson was helpful for you, and I hope it helped you to be able to self-check your study level. If you liked this lesson, please, please, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for more can-do questions like these to help you check your study level and to move forward in your study progress. And you'll also find some other great tools that you can use to work on improving your English. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about the differences between finally, eventually, and ultimately. These three words share a lot of commonalities, so I'm going to break down some of the nuances that we see in these words and give you some situations in which it's appropriate to use them. Let's get started. Okay, first I want to look at the word finally. So in this lesson, I'm going to focus on two ways that we use this word. The first way is to mean after a long time at the end of a time period. So a good hint, a good way to kind of remember this use is to remember that inside the word finally, we have the word final, which means the last of something or the end of something. So this can be kind of a good way to help you remember this use of the word. Let's look at some examples of this. First, we waited at the station all day. The train finally arrived, but it was 6 hours late. So let's read the last sentence again. The train finally arrived, but it was 6 hours late. So this sentence uses finally before the verb arrived. This expresses that after a long time, in this case, 6 hours, something finally happened, or something in the end happened. So the feeling here is that this thing happened at the end of a time period. And generally, we use this after a long time period. In this case, 6 hours is a long time to wait at a train station, so we use the word finally to express that feeling. Let's look at the second example here. I finally finished the project I started last year. Once more, I finally finished the project I started last year. So again, here we have finally before the verb, finished, and this is expressing the end point of something that started a long time ago. So in this case, the project the speaker started last year, so probably a long time ago, a few months ago. So again, here we're expressing the end of a time period, and there was a long period before that. Okay, so with this use, maybe another good kind of key word to keep in mind is this word I have marked with a star here, relief. So we tend to use this kind of finally when we're sort of happy or we're relieved that we don't have to wait anymore, or that this thing is done, it's over, we don't have to think about it. So you'll feel kind of this expression coming from speakers when they use finally in this way. The train finally arrived, but it was 6 hours late, so we're relieved in some way. Or, I finally finished my project. There's that sense of relief that comes with this use of finally. So we use this after a long period of time to mark the end point of something. Okay, let's move on to the second use here. We use finally to refer to the last action or the last step in a series. So we use this a lot in two situations. One, when we need to think about something and make a decision, and two, when we're explaining steps in something, like maybe steps to use a software or steps in like a cooking recipe. So with this in mind, let's take a look at these examples. First, after considering many options, I finally decided to get my degree in economics. Once more, after considering many options, I finally decided to get my degree in economics. Okay, so in this situation, the speaker is talking about the focus of their studies, and they use finally decided. So this is a very common key verb that we see with this use of finally. Finally decided something. So this suggests the feeling here is that there were many different things for the speaker to consider, many different things for the speaker to choose from. And after that period, This was their decision. So they're expressing this kind of last step. This was my last step in this process of choosing a study focus or choosing the degree to study in university. So we use finally in this way to express I had lots of different choices and the last decision I made, like my last decision here, was to do this thing. So we use this to talk about our decision making after a period of time. Let's look at the next example sentence. Our group couldn't agree on a restaurant for lunch. So we finally split into two groups and went to separate places. So once more, our group couldn't agree on a restaurant for lunch. So we finally split into two groups and went to separate places. Okay, so again, this is referring to a decision-making process. We have one group of people, they want to decide where to go to lunch, but they couldn't agree, so they finally, so that means in the end, or kind of the last decision they made was to split into two groups and go to separate places. So again, we're using finally before the last decision in the situation. We finally split into two groups. So this is one way that we can use finally to talk about the last step or the last action in a process. Let's look at the last example. This one is something you might see in a cookbook or maybe on a recipe blog. It's the last step in a recipe. Here, it's finally, let the soup boil for 30 minutes, then turn off the heat and serve. So once more, finally, let the soup boil for 30 minutes, then turn off the heat and serve. So this finally is like a flag word. It's like a hint. This is the last step. That's what this finally at the beginning of the sentence is telling us. So finally means this is the last thing you need to do, the last step or the last action. So here it's used at the beginning of the sentence. Typically when you see it used in step-by-step processes, finally will be at the beginning of the sentence. So it's kind of a big hint for you, the last thing you need to do. Okay, so now that we've looked at finally, let's compare this to eventually, the second word for this lesson. Okay, so eventually is used to mean after a period of time or at some future point. So we're using this word a lot to kind of refer to things that may happen in the future. So after a period of time, or things that actually happened in the past, but after a period of time. These are kind of the typical uses of the word eventually. So let's look at our examples. First, you're really talented. I'm sure you'll eventually get a promotion. Once more, you're really talented. I'm sure you'll eventually get a promotion. Okay, so let's break down this use of eventually. Here we have, you'll eventually get a promotion. This is a future tense expression, so you will. I'm sure you will eventually get a promotion. This is like saying, I'm sure that at some future point, you will get a promotion. That's what this eventually means. We cannot use finally in this sentence to express the same idea. I'm sure you'll finally get a promotion doesn't really communicate that same feeling of taking time, like taking a long time to reach a certain point. Okay? So this use of eventually expresses that future expectation. In this case, the speaker is saying, oh, I think you're so great, you will probably eventually get a promotion after time in the future. Okay, let's look at another example. This one is a past tense example. He was really sick last winter. He eventually got better, thanks to good medical care. Once more, he was really sick last winter. He eventually got better, thanks to good medical care. Okay, so as I said, this is a past tense sentence. He eventually got better. So our past tense verb got better refers to getting better or becoming not sick, becoming healthy again. So what's happening here? How do we understand eventually in past tense? Think of this eventually got better as meaning after a period of time in the past. So eventually is very useful because we don't have to say after 2 weeks of medical care or after 3 weeks of medical care. We can just say he eventually got better. It sounds like after a period of time in the past that we don't have to be very specific about, he got better. So this is a really, really useful word that you can use to talk about past actions, things that completed over time. Okay, let's look at one more example. This is an example of a sentence where you can use eventually and finally. We saw this in part 1. I eventually finished the project I started last year. I eventually finished the project I started last year. So again, this eventually communicates, because it's a past tense sentence, I eventually finished the project I started. This also communicates that after a period of time in the past, I finished my project. So again, the speaker is not saying after many weeks or after many days or whatever. They're just saying after a period of time, I did it. I achieved my goal, in other words. So how do we understand the difference in feeling and in nuance between I eventually finished the project I started last year? I have a key word here for this word, for eventually. So a feeling that you can think of with eventually is that these things refer to, or these example situations refer to things that happen gradually over time. So in this example, you're talented, I'm sure you'll eventually get a promotion. It sounds like gradually, through your hard work, you'll get a promotion. Or in this second example sentence, referring to medical care, gradually he got better and better over time. And this one too, I eventually finished the project step by step. This is kind of the feeling with eventually. We're talking about small steps towards a certain direction or a certain goal over time. On the other hand, this sentence with finally, I finally finished the project, has a sense of relief. I feel so relieved. So yes, maybe it's true. The speaker did take a lot of steps to complete the project. That could be totally possible, 100%. But the feeling they express with finally is one of relief. They're glad it's done. Here, we don't have the same feeling of relief so much. Instead, the speaker wants to emphasize that kind of step-by-step work towards their goal. Okay, let's move on to talking about the last word for this lesson, which is ultimately. So I want to talk about two uses of ultimately. The first is meaning in the end, or referring to a finishing point. So let's look at the first example sentence. First is, ultimately, we decided not to buy the house. Ultimately, we decided not to buy the house. So this ultimately at the beginning of the sentence communicates in the end, this idea of in the end. And it also has the feeling of making a decision or taking this action, coming to this finishing point after doing something else. So it sounds like maybe we looked at the house, we compared many different other houses, we looked at prices, other information, and so on. Ultimately kind of includes all of that feeling. So in that sense, it's a little bit similar to this word, eventually, because eventually talks about doing something gradually over time. With ultimately, however, we don't have this feeling that like a lot of time passed. Rather, with ultimately, it's like we made a decision or we chose to do an action after considering maybe many different things or looking at many different options, but it doesn't mean that it happened over a long period of time. Not necessarily, not always. So ultimately, we decided not to buy the house. Maybe this was a decision you made after 1 week, so not such a long time. But it shows that you made maybe lots of considerations inside that decision. Let's look at the next example. The job she applied for was ultimately given to someone else. The job she applied for was ultimately given to someone else. Okay, so we have this same feeling of maybe lots of consideration happening and then a decision with this. So in the end, the job she applied for was given to someone else. That's another helpful kind of keyword you can think of with ultimately as in the end. So in this situation, someone applied for a job and she did not receive the job. So ultimately, the job she applied for was given to someone else. This sounds like the people in charge of assigning the job had many different candidates to choose from. They had many different personalities and skills to consider. And the final decision, or in the end, the finishing point for their decision was someone else. We use ultimately to express this. Again, this can happen in a very short period of time. We don't have this sense of something happening gradually that we do with eventually. Okay, let's move to the last point for this lesson. The last point here is using ultimately to mean fundamentally. So this one is kind of unique. This is unique from the others in that we don't use this to refer to time passing. Rather, this refers to something that's very, very basic about a situation. So let's look at the examples. First, ultimately, your fitness and health results depend on your effort. So ultimately, your fitness and health results depend on your effort. So this use of ultimately, we could substitute the word fundamentally or basically here, but ultimately kind of sounds a little bit more grand, right? It sounds like it's maybe a more important decision or something very important you need to consider. So when we want to use ultimately in this way, it's generally talking about something that's kind of basic, but that we want to present in kind of a more formal or polished way. So we could say, your fitness and health results depend on your effort alone, or something like that. Something that's kind of basic and easy to understand, but when we want to kind of make these basic points in a more polished manner, we might use the word ultimately to do that. Let's look at one more example. Ultimately, this is a decision only the CEO can make. Ultimately, this is a decision only the CEO can make. So again, we could substitute the word fundamentally or basically in this sentence and get the same feeling, but ultimately sounds a little bit more polished. So another way to understand this sentence is that this is the decision that only the CEO can make, and that means that maybe our opinion doesn't matter or we don't get to decide in this situation. That's what we want to communicate here. So this is kind of a use of ultimately that you may see in, for example, like political speeches or company speeches, or maybe when people are talking to large groups, or maybe trying to advertise something or market something. So we don't use this ultimately so much in everyday regular communication with our coworkers and our friends, but that is what this use of ultimately refers to. It's quite different from the other expressions we talked about in this lesson. So to recap, we can use ultimately to mean in the end, to refer to a finishing point after lots of consideration, and to mean fundamentally. We use eventually to refer to something that happens after a period of time or at some future point. And the key to remember here is that it's something that happens gradually over time. And we talked about how to use finally to mean after a long time or at the end of a period to express relief that that thing is done. And we also talked about using finally to refer to the last action or the last step in a series. So we covered a lot of different points here, and I think you can see how it's very easy to confuse some of these words and the ways in which we use them. But I hope that this lesson made it a little bit clearer about how you can use these three words to talk about the passage of time as well. So I hope this lesson helped you. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some example sentences with these words, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Of course, if you like this lesson, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about reflexive pronouns. Let's get started. Okay, first, let's explain. What is a reflexive pronoun? So, reflexive pronouns are pronouns used when the subject and the object of a verb are the same person or the same thing. So, you probably already know some reflexive pronouns. Let's take a look at this list of pronouns. So first, we have our subject pronouns. These are the words that we use when these people or objects are the subject of our sentence. So we have I, you, we, they, he, she, and it. These subject words all have matching reflexive pronouns. So we use these in a couple of different situations, but today I want to focus on using these words as pairs when the verb in the sentence is being done by this person and affects this person. So let's take a look at the pairs and then we'll look at some example sentences. So first, when our subject is I, the reflexive pronoun is myself. When the subject is you, we have two pronouns we can choose from, actually. When we have the singular you, meaning you, just one person, we use yourself. If we're talking about you as more than one person, we use yourselves as the reflexive pronoun. We'll see an example of this later. Next, when our subject pronoun is we, the reflexive pronoun is ourselves, ourselves. Next, we have they, and the reflexive pronoun is themselves. Next, we have he, a reflexive pronoun, himself, she, herself, and it, itself. So all of these pronouns are maybe commonly used words, and we use them in other situations too. But for today's lesson, we're going to practice using them together around the same verb. I want to make one point very, very quickly before we move on to these example sentences, though. That's about this point in red. One very common use of reflexive pronouns that I'm not going to talk about in depth today is this use. We can also use reflexive pronouns for emphasis reasons. So in this situation, when we use these pronouns for emphasis purposes, we typically follow the original, the subject here, in this case I, in the first example, directly with the relative pronoun. So this example sentence is, I myself disagree with that opinion. I myself disagree with that opinion. So this is an example of a sentence pattern that's used to really emphasize that it's just me. I am the only person that disagrees with that opinion. So this is used for emphasis. Let's look at one more example of this use, and then we'll move on to the focus of today's lesson. The manager herself will attend the meeting. The manager herself will attend the meeting. So in this sentence, you'll notice I have herself here, used here, this reflexive pronoun, yeah? But here I have the manager. So I just said, okay, well, this is a pair, right? You might see situations where the gender of the person is not specified in the subject. So we don't say she or he, but instead we use a job title or a position. So in this case, the manager in the situation is a woman, and we're using it directly after the subject. The manager herself will attend the meeting. So in this situation, we're emphasizing the manager is going to attend. We want to kind of give some sort of special emphasis or show that this is a special situation. So you may see these pronouns used in this way, but this is not the focus for today's lesson. I want to focus now on using these as pairs around a verb. So let's take a look at how we use these two words together. The first example is one of my favorite examples to use to practice this grammar point. I hit myself in the face. I hit myself in the face. So what does this sentence mean? This sentence uses the verb hit or to punch something, right? So maybe most of us have had the experience, unfortunately, of maybe trying to pull a blanket or do something, and on accident, not on purpose, you hit yourself in the face. So in this situation, and we'll see in all the other sentences, the person doing the action is me. So I hit myself. So this shows us the person doing the action and the person receiving the action are the same person. This is what we use reflexive pronouns to do. So in this situation, a funny one, but relatable, I hit myself in the face. Okay, let's look at a different subject. You should pat yourself on the back. You should pat yourself on the back. So to pat yourself on the back means you should congratulate yourself. So this motion, to pat yourself on the back, this is a kind of expression that we use to say you should feel proud of yourself or you should feel good about yourself. So in this situation, we have this reflexive pronoun used. You is the subject, one person. You should pat yourself on the back. So again, the subject and the person receiving the action are the same person. You should pat yourself on the back. So meaning you should feel proud of yourself. So another very positive expression that you can use. Okay, let's look at you again, but in this situation, we're going to look at the plural you. So I mentioned earlier that we can use you in two forms with reflexive pronouns. We can use you yourself for one person and you yourselves for more than one person. So let's take a look at this. Here, wow, did you design your home yourselves? So, wow, did you design your home yourselves? This is formatted as a question. So someone is maybe visiting your house and they want to ask you and the person you live with, wow, did you, meaning more than one person, did you design your home yourselves? So this person is asking, were you, the person who is also the subject of this question, and the person who did the action, the same person? Did you design your home yourselves? It looks great. So we can use you with a plural reflexive pronoun. That's the key point to keep in mind here. Singular is yourself, plural is yourselves. Okay, let's move along to the next example. We bought ourselves a TV. We bought ourselves a TV. So in this sentence, we have our we subject. Our verb is bought and we have ourselves as the object. So think of this in like a gift-giving situation. When you buy something for someone else, this sentence takes on a different pattern, right? I bought something for my friend, right? Or I bought my friend something, right? The person who receives the item comes after bought. But in this case, we want to say we bought something for ourselves. So we are the receiver and we are the person that bought, or we are the people that bought that thing. So we can use this to talk about purchases that we make for ourselves, if it's we, if more than one person, or if it's just one person, you can say, I bought myself a new TV. So this is a very common use of this reflexive pronoun. Okay, let's look at our next one. The next one is kind of a sports style sentence. They positioned themselves on the football field. They positioned themselves on the football field. So this sentence, they positioned themselves, means like the players in the game. So the football players, they are the subject, they are the people doing it, and they're also the people kind of receiving this action. So the people are in charge of it and they are affected by this action. They positioned themselves on the football field. Okay, the next example uses he. So he's teaching himself how to cook. He's teaching himself how to cook. This pattern is a very, very helpful one. The subject is teaching and pronoun, how to something. So you can use this to talk about things that you are teaching yourself to do as well. In this sentence, you'll notice the grammar is a little bit different. Here we're using a progressive grammar form. He is teaching himself how to cook. This shows it's an ongoing action. So in this case, he is the subject, he is the person, and he is the person that is the teacher, and he is also the learner. That's what this communicates. So teacher and learner are the same person. We have this in this expression. He's teaching himself how to cook. If you want to use this to talk about something that you are teaching yourself to do, you can say, I'm teaching myself how to whatever. I'm teaching myself how to speak English, for example. Okay, let's take a look at the next example sentence. She locked herself out of her car. She locked herself out of her car. Another very common situation. So in this case, we have she as our subject, and then locked. So in this case, we have to lock a car, meaning to close the car with the key. So we cannot go inside. And then herself. She locked herself out. So this particular expression, to lock out of something, means that we are unable to get into something, and it's our own fault. So this expression means that she was the person who locked the car, and she's affected because she cannot get in the car as well. That's what this means. She locked herself out of her car. We can also use this with houses, apartments, and so on. I locked myself out of my apartment. He locked himself out of his house. So this is a very common expression that we use to talk about this situation, where it's your fault. You are the person who locked the car or locked the home, and you are the person affected by the situation. Okay, let's look at our last example. The last example uses an object. So the lamp turned itself on when we got home. The lamp turned itself on when we got home. So maybe you remember at the beginning of this lesson, I mentioned we use it as the subject here. So this it can take different forms. We can also replace it with the specific object here. So in this case, the lamp is it. So it's not a he or a she, it's an object. So we can replace it with an object in this case and still follow the it itself reflexive pronoun rule. So in this case, the lamp turned itself on when we got home. So again, in this situation, the lamp is the actor here, and the lamp turned itself on. So this is something that we use. This kind of pattern is something we use for home electronics, like the computer turned itself on, or my phone turned itself on. This means I didn't do anything. The machine acted alone. So we can use this to talk about like actions that are kind of mysterious with machines, and we can also use it, perhaps in a case like this, to talk about something that's motion activated, or maybe that has a timer set, and so on. So when you want to talk about machines or lighting in your house, these kinds of things that can do things by themselves, like we don't have to hit the switch or do any kind of settings, we can talk about those things with the object turned itself on. We can also do the opposite. The object turned itself off. But the key here is that we're using it turned itself. So again, that reflexive pronoun is used to show that these two things, the subject and the object, are affected by the same verb, or they're acting together with the verb. Okay, so this is a quick introduction to reflexive pronouns and how we use them. These are actually very, very commonly used in everyday speech, and they're also very helpful if we're talking about these kinds of interesting experiences where the subject and the object of a verb are the same. So I hope that this lesson was helpful for you and you found some new ways to express these ideas. So if this lesson was helpful for you, please, please, please don't forget to send a comment. And of course, if you want to practice making some example sentences, feel free to do so in the comment section as well. If you like this lesson, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Also, check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye! Hi everybody, welcome back to Top Words. My name is Alicia, and today we're going to talk about 10 words for relationships and marriage. So let's go. Boyfriend, girlfriend. The first word or first pair of words is boyfriend or girlfriend. A boyfriend or a girlfriend, these are words we use for a person you are not married to, but a person you are dating. So if the person you see regularly, if the person you are in the relationship with is a boy, you can say, he is my boyfriend. If the person you are in a relationship with is a girl, you can say, she's my girlfriend. I want to see my boyfriend. I want to see my girlfriend. I haven't seen my boyfriend in a long time. When's the next time you're going to see your girlfriend? So we use these for people we are not married to. They are just for people we are dating. We can use the word, especially for women, we sometimes use girlfriend to mean our female friends. Like, I'm going for dinner with my girlfriends this weekend. In this case, there's not really a romantic nuance. Otherwise, usually there's that nuance of dating someone. In a sentence, do you have a girlfriend? Husband, wife. The next pair of words is husband and wife. Husband and wife. Husband is used for a man you are married to. Wife is used for a woman you are married to. So husband and wife are kind of the same, like there's a romantic or a special connection between you and that person. So husband and wife, you are married. We use these words for people who are married. My husband works hard every day, or my wife really likes to fix cars in her free time, for example. So we can use these to talk about that special person that we are married to in our lives. In a sentence, your husband is really funny. Partner. The next word is partner, partner. So some people prefer to use a word like partner just to mean maybe there's a special person in their life, and for whatever reason, they prefer not to use boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. So we can use the word partner just to mean a person you have a special connection with. So a partner can be a man or a woman. You can use it for pretty much any person that you have a special connection with, but it usually means like some kind of romantic, like the relationship you have with that person is different from all your other relationships. It's a very special connection with that person. But this can mean people you are married to, or you have a specific union with. You can use it for that, or you can use it for people you are dating. So your partner. So in a sentence, he and his partner are busy this weekend. Spouse. The next word is spouse. Spouse. Be careful of the pronunciation with this. Spouse. It sounds like mouse, not spose, but spouse. Spouse is the correct pronunciation. Spouse means the person you are married to, the person you are in your legal union with. You are spouse. You're the other person in your marriage. This can be a man or a woman. So we use this not so much in conversation, but in lots of legal documents. So like, who is your spouse? Or please list your spouse's name, or please write the name of your spouse in this box, for example. I don't hear, I suppose from time to time you could say like, my spouse is so-and-so, but again, it sounds like something very, very formal, not used so much. Usually we just say husband or wife or partner, but spouse is used in lots of documentation. So in a sentence, I think it's important to have a supportive spouse. marry. The next word is marry, marry as a verb, to marry. So when you use this, please use it in an expression like, I want to marry person. So I want to marry, I don't know, Stevens, for example. I want to marry a kind of person too. So I want to marry a kind person. I want to marry a hardworking person. We do not say, I want to marry with blah, blah, blah. Don't use that. Sometimes my students say, I want to marry with a kind person. Don't use with. No preposition there. I want to marry person. I want to marry a kind of person. Should follow the verb marry here. You can say like, when do you want to marry blah, blah, blah person, for example. So you need to follow marry with the object. Who are you going to marry? What kind of person are you going to marry? In a sentence, what kind of person do you want to marry? Marriage. The next word is marriage. Marriage. Please be careful. Many people confuse marry or get married and marriage. Marriage is the noun form. Marriage is a noun. We cannot say, I want to marriage with. I want to marriage someone. It's not correct. Marriage is a noun. We use marriage when we're talking about the concept of marriage. Like, is marriage important to you? Or what's your idea of marriage? Or how has marriage changed in recent years? Or what do you think of marriage among young people in your country these days? Marriage is used to talk about the concept of marriage, not so much in questions like your own wedding, perhaps, but to talk about the concept of marriage itself. So, in a sentence, is marriage important to you? Significant other. The next word is significant other. Significant other. So significant means something of importance, of significance, something that is maybe different from the other people in your life. Your significant other, the other person in your relationship. Significant other refers to your husband, wife, spouse, partner. The special person, that one special person in your life is your significant other. My significant other, his significant other. So you might also see this, especially on the internet. It's abbreviated, it's shortened to SO on the internet. So my SO thinks, my SO does, my SO, blah, blah, blah. SO means significant other. So the person I am married to or the person I am in a committed relationship with. This can mean married or not married. So significant other. In a sentence, you should trust your significant other. Break up. The next expression is break up. Break up. So when you are dating someone and you decide the relationship is not going well, or if something happens, whatever, you decide to end a relationship. When you end a romantic relationship, we use the phrase break up. To break up with someone. Past tense is broke up. So break becomes broke in past tense. I broke up with my boyfriend last week. I broke up with my girlfriend last week. I don't want to break up. Or breaking up is hard to do. So break up refers to ending a romantic relationship. In a sentence, I think we should break up. Divorce. The next word is divorce. Divorce. So divorce is different from break up because divorce refers to ending a marriage. So divorce and break up have roughly the same nuance-ish, but divorce means to legally separate, to legally break up. So marriage means to like legally solidify, to legally create a relationship. But to divorce means, oh no, you're done. Separating, divorcing, so separating from the other person in the marriage. So I think we should get a divorce, or I heard the divorce was very difficult, or my neighbor got divorced last year, or what do you think about divorce rates in your country? Divorce. In a sentence, the neighbors got a divorce. Remarry. The next word is remarry. Remarry. We've talked about the word, or the prefix rather. We've talked about the prefix re before. Re means to do something again. Remarry, so means to marry again. So after a divorce, after legally separating from someone, so divorcing someone, if you choose to marry again, we use the verb to remarry, to remarry. So after the divorce, my neighbor remarried, or it may be hard for people to remarry after a difficult relationship, for example. So remarry is to marry again. In a sentence, do you think you'll ever remarry? So those are 10 words for talking about relationships and marriage. I hope those are useful for you. If you have any questions or comments, please be sure to let us know in the comment section below this video. If you liked the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel too. Check us out at EnglishClass101.com for more good stuff as well. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Top Words, and we'll see you again soon. Bye! So I want to marry I don't know, Stevens, for example. Stevens gets in a lot of trouble at work, though. I don't know. If you've been watching Top Words for a few years, you know that Stevens always gets in trouble in my example sentences. Okay. Hi everybody, welcome back to Top Words. My name is Alicia, and today we're going to talk about 10 phrasal verbs you can use when shopping. So let's go. Sign up for. Okay, the first phrasal verb for today is sign up for. Sign up for. We usually hear this phrase at a department store or maybe a boutique shop, for example. The staff may ask you, would you like to sign up for our members program? Or would you like to sign up for a point card? Or would you like to sign up for a credit card, for example? It's usually to become a member or to get some kind of card or to get points or coupons or something. You can sign up for a membership system. Ring up. The next phrasal verb is ring up. Ring up. You can also use ring up at a restaurant or bar. Ring up means to total, to combine all the prices of the items you would like to buy at the register. So to total everything is to ring up your bill. It's usually used in an expression like I can ring you up. So to ring a person up means to total one person's bill, to total all of the items they are going to buy. So I'll ring you up at the cash register, or when you're ready, I'll ring you up over there, or we can ring up your items when you're ready, for example. So it's usually, because it's usually from a staff person to a customer, it's usually going to be something like I'll ring you up, or we can ring up your total. It's usually going to be one of those two patterns. So listen for those. Ring up means total, to make the total for your bill. Try on. The next expression is try on. Try on. We use try on for clothes and shoes, anything we can put on our body. So try on glasses, try on a watch, try on a hat, try on a shirt, try on a dress, try on shoes, try on a new pair of pants. Sure. All of these things we can try on. So try on our bodies. So to try something and try on. So we attach it to our bodies. We put it on our bodies. So it's just a test. So we use try. So to try something. So you'll always use this with clothes or accessories, anything you can put on your body. So I just gave a lot of example sentences there, but staff might say, would you like to try it on? Or if you'd like to try it on, there's a fitting room over there. Or why don't you try it on, for example. Shop around. The next expression is shop around. Shop around. So we have the word shop, of course, meaning like to look with the intention of buying something, to shop. But around means to go to more than one place. So we use the expression shop around typically when there's some specific product we would like to buy and we're maybe comparing prices or comparing features. These days we can shop around quite easily on the internet, like checking different websites to compare prices and to compare products. But you can also use shop around like in a shopping mall, for example. So to shop around for new clothes or to shop around for a camera I want. We use shop around to mean visiting many different shops to compare before buying something, to shop around. In a sentence, I want to shop around for a new camera, or I'm shopping around for a new dress, or I'm shopping around for this pair of shoes that I've really been wanting to buy. Try out. The next expression is try out, try out. So we talked about the phrasal verb try on. Try on means to put on clothes, to test out clothes.
But to try out is something we use for a product, like something we don't put on our bodies. So for example, a new electronic device, like a new phone or a new laptop, or maybe, I don't know, GPS system, or something you can kind of manipulate. You can test it, but not by attaching it to your body necessarily, not like with clothes. So it's usually some kind of like machine, or maybe it's some kind of item you can like manipulate in some way. There's some kind of like test you can do, some action you can take with this product. So to try out a new phone, to try out a new knife maybe, or to try out a new car, I suppose. With cars, however, there is a special phrasal verb. Well, it's not really a phrasal verb, but we use the expression take a test drive with cars. But for other products like everyday like gadgets, electronic items, we usually just say try out. So some example sentences using try out, like, would you like to try out the new iPhone? Or I want to try out this new computer I saw. Or let's go try out that new virtual reality experience. Drive by. Next expression is drive by. Drive by. So to drive, meaning drive a car usually, and we use the expression drive by to mean make a short stop somewhere. So we can say like run by as well, but drive by means like the nuance of using a car is much stronger. If you're traveling by car, you can say drive by or run by if you like, but we'll only use drive by if we're using a car or a truck, I suppose. So drive by means make a quick stop someplace like a shopping mall or the supermarket for just a few minutes, maybe to pick up a small item. So it has the nuance of a very short visit somewhere for a very small purpose. So for example, I need to drive by the supermarket and get some milk. Or let's drive by the pharmacy and pick up my medicine. Or, hey, can you drive by the pizza shop on the way home and get us some dinner? So a very short stop somewhere. Go somewhere, maybe just grab something, just pick up something small and continue. Drive by. Please be careful. You may hear the expression like a drive-by shooting. This is different. A drive-by shooting, which is usually the expression it's used in, means from a car, someone shoots a gun. Totally different expression. It means in that case, a gun is being shot from a car. The person driving the car doesn't stop, but a shooting happens as the car is in motion. That's totally different from the phrasal verb drive by a location. When we use drive by a location, it means to make a quick stop somewhere. You may hear the expression, especially in the news, drive by shooting, which means a shooting situation that happens from a moving vehicle. Very, very different ideas, so please be careful there. Pay for. All right, the next expression is pay for something. So to pay for something is to provide money in exchange for goods. So please pay for this shirt, or how would you like to pay for this? Or you can pay for your items at the register. So pay for, we just use pay for to make the items we are buying clear. So to give an example, you can say, please pay over there, or I want to pay. We can make a very simple sentence with the verb pay. But by using pay for, we can be specific about the items we are buying. So instead of I want to pay, we can say, I want to pay for these items, or I want to pay for this thing, whatever. By using for, we can be specific. What would you like to pay for here? So I want to pay for my lunch and her drinks, for example, or I want to pay for everybody's drinks. This is very useful in those situations. If you say, I want to pay, it's not so clear. Especially in a group situation. If, however, you say, I want to pay for something, you can make it very clear the items you would like to pay for, if that makes sense. Take off. The next phrasal verb is take off. Take off. So this is probably not a phrasal verb you will say, or you probably, I hope, you probably won't hear the phrasal verb take off. but it may be a phrasal verb you can think about, especially when you're trying on clothes or shoes or accessories or something. We use the verb take off to mean remove clothing. So for example, if you're shoe shopping, you should take off your shoes and maybe take off your socks in some cases to try on shoes, or take off a shirt to try on a different shirt, or take off your suit jacket to try on a winter coat, for example. So take off means to remove clothing so that you can try on something else. So again, you probably won't use this, I hope. You could use it as a suggestion to your friend, like, oh, you don't need to go to the fitting room. Just take off your jacket and try on this jacket here. Like, you could use it in that situation. Like, oh, just take off your shoes and try these on. It'll be really quick. So you can use it maybe as a small suggestion if you're shopping with a friend, but otherwise you might not use this so much verbally. You can think it though, like I should take off, blah, 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 to try on something else. Sell out. The next expression is sell out, to sell out of something. Sell out of blah, blah, blah. So to sell out of means to no longer have stock, to no longer have that product. So if I go to a cake store to buy a cake and they say, I'm very sorry, we are sold out, past tense, we are sold out of that cake, means no more cakes are available. There are 0 cakes available at that store. I cannot buy it because they have already sold all of them. So sold out means no more available. We cannot buy any more. Everything has been sold. So sell out, to sell out, past tense, sold out. You'll usually hear we've sold out. We've sold out of product. So other sentences, I'm so sorry, we've sold out of the new iPhone already. Or I hope they don't sell out before we get there. Or I went to the store, but they said they were sold out of the product I wanted. Line up. The next phrasal verb is line up. Line up. To line up means to make a line, usually in front of a store or maybe in a store. To make a line for a product, or to make a line for maybe a restaurant as well. To line up means to create a line of people who are waiting to buy a product. We don't say to line, like please line, or please don't line. We always say please line up. In British English, you might hear the word queue as well, to queue for something. In that case, you can use the word to queue without the word up. In American English, we don't really use the word queue, but I suppose you can, but it's more common in American English to use line up. So please line up, or you might hear make a line. Please make a line over there. But in general, we say, like, there are a lot of people lined up for that new restaurant. Or did you see all the people lined up for the new iPhone? Or I don't want to line up for lunch. Let's go to a different restaurant, for example. So lining up is to make a line of people. Okay. All right, so those are 10 phrasal verbs that you can use when you are shopping. I hope that that was useful for you. If you have any questions or comments, let us know in the comment section below this video. If you liked the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Check us out at EnglishClass101.com for more good stuff as well. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Top Words, and I will see you again soon. Bye!
Hi everybody, welcome back to Top Words. My name is Alicia, and today we're going to talk about 10 mistakes that native English speakers make. So let's get started. Less, fewer. Okay, so the first mistake that native speakers make is they confuse less and fewer. Less and fewer are very similarly used. However, there's a key grammar difference between them. We use the word less to refer to uncountable nouns, a quantity of uncountable nouns. We use fewer for countable nouns. So for example, to use fewer, I could say, I made fewer mistakes on this test than I did on the last one. And to use less, I could say, I made less money last year than I did this year. So when you want to make a comparison with a countable noun, when you want to talk about a smaller quantity of something or smaller amount of something, With a countable noun, you should use fewer. If you're talking about an uncountable noun, you should use less. So please be careful. Less and fewer. Less uncountable, fewer countable. Your. The next pair is actually a spelling-related mistake. It's your and your. So Y-O-U-R and Y-O-U apostrophe R-E. Your is the possessive, like something that belongs to you is yours, your item. Y-O-U apostrophe R-E is the contracted form of you are. You are great, you are funny, you are tired, for example. Native speakers often make spelling mistakes because these two words sound the same, but actually they're grammatically different. So, another example sentence. Your performance was really great. My parents think you're great. My parents think you're great. So here we have the apostrophe R-E, your. So please be careful. Native speakers often make this spelling mistake. There. Okay, so the next mistake that many native speakers make is, again, a spelling-related mistake. It's with the three types of there. There's there, as in over there, a location. There's there, T-H-E-I-R, the possessive form, something belonging to them. And T-H-E-Y apostrophe R-E, the contracted form of they are. Native speakers often make spelling mistakes with these three words because they sound the same. There. They all sound the same, but in terms of grammar, they have different functions. So, in an interesting sentence, you could say, they're in their car over there, or they're over there in their car. Oh. So, we can use all of these words in the same sentence, but in order to correctly express the meaning, we need to make sure the spelling is correct too. It's. The next mistake that many native speakers make is a punctuation mistake, usually. The difference here is between it's with an apostrophe and it's without an apostrophe. So the word it's with an apostrophe can be the contracted form of it is or it has, depending on the sentence. It's with no apostrophe just means the possessive form of something. So something which belongs to it, some it outside this discussion. So native speakers often forget which one gets an apostrophe. Does the possessive get an apostrophe or not? So no, the possessive form does not take an apostrophe here. The only apostrophes are for the contracted form of it is and it has. So please don't make this mistake that native speakers make. In a sentence, I saw Star Wars. It's a really cool movie. Its effects are awesome. Nuclear versus nuclear. Okay, the next mistake is a pronunciation mistake. Many native speakers make this mistake. Many high-ranking officials, presidents make this mistake. Politicians make this mistake. The word nuclear is spelled N-U-C-L-E-A-R, nuclear. However, many people pronounce this as nuclear for some reason. I don't know why this is, but many people say nuclear instead of nuclear. If you pay attention to the news, you'll probably hear this after a short discussion of this topic. Somebody will say the word nuclear. I don't know why this is, but nuclear is the correct pronunciation of this word. Don't pronounce nuclear as nuclear. Could have versus could of. Okay, the next mistake that native speakers make is, again, a spelling, usually a written problem. It's could have and could of. Could have and could of. So actually, could of is the mistake here. We don't use the could of. Could of is not a grammar point here. Rather, when native speakers use the contracted form of could have, it sounds like could have. So for example, I could have come to the party if I finished my homework, or I could have met you last weekend, or I could have, blah, blah, blah. It's could have. But when speaking, in speech, it sounds like of, I could have. Because the contracted form sounds like v, like of. It makes a v sound, an of sound. So sometimes native speakers write could of. However, this is incorrect. We should write could have if you want to use the expanded, the regular form instead of the contracted form. So
could have should be used instead of could of. Could of is a mistake. Please use could have instead. Okay, so one more example sentence. I could have explained better. Effect versus effect. So the next mistake that many native speakers make is with the words affect with an E and affect with an A. While there are some maybe less common differences between how these words are used, especially the word effect with an E, in most situations, we can consider the difference of these two words to be in grammatical function. The word effect with an E is typically used as a noun, as in a side effect or the effect of something. When we use effect with an A, it's typically used as a verb in a sentence, like this change is going to affect my life, or I don't want to affect your family, for example. When we use it as a verb, we should use A, the A spelling. When we use a noun, we should use the E spelling. Yes, there are some situations where effect with an E is used as a verb. It's in, let's see, for example, in situations where we want to explain a change occurring or something which causes a change. We say to effect change, meaning causing something or in order to do something. But again, that use is not as common as what I talked about before, the noun and the verb differentiation of these two. So if you like, you can look more into that. But in general, consider E as your noun form of effect and A as your verb form of effect. Example sentences. The drug had a strong effect. The drug affected my body. There's a lot of. So the next mistake that people make is they begin a sentence with there's. There is, the contracted form of there is. They say there's a lot of, and then they complete the statement with the plural form of a noun, like there's a lot of people in here, or there's a lot of blah, blah, blahs, like cookies in the kitchen. The problem here is that we're beginning the sentence with there's, there is, the singular form, there is. So that means that the noun that follows that phrase also needs to be in the singular. There is a something. We can't use the plural form here. So many native speakers, maybe they don't think about the next part of the sentence and they begin their sentence with there's something, something, something. This is a very common mistake, actually. If you're using the plural form of a noun, you need to use there are instead. There are a lot of people in the room. There are a lot of cookies in the kitchen, for example. So think about plural noun and the plural form of is or are in the singular as well. So this is a very common one. Be careful of that. Vague use of pronouns. The next one is a huge problem in writing. So people are sometimes very vague. Vague means unclear about using like pronouns, him or her or he or she, especially in cases where there might be many people involved in a situation. So if, for example, I say, he gave the book to her after he finished reading it, it's like, how many people are involved in this situation? I said he gave the book to her after he finished reading it. There are two he's in that sentence. Are they the same person? We don't know. So it can be very important to identify all the actors in a sentence or in a paragraph to prevent confusion. So if it is a situation like that where I say something like, he gave the book to her after he finished it, but there are two different men involved in that sentence, I might say like, Mike gave her the book after Gary finished it, for example. Or if it's Mike the whole way through, I could say, Mike gave Mary the book once he had finished reading it, for example. We could change the sentence slightly if we really want to make it clear. But just make your, all of your pronouns should be very, very clear to your reader. If you use he and she and it's not clear who you're talking about, you can really confuse the person listening or the person reading. So please be careful of this. Faulty parallelism. The next one is faulty parallelism, or in other words, it's a grammatical function where all the items in a list, usually in a list or in bullet points as well, all the items in those lists or in those categories should have the same grammatical type of expression. So by that I mean if you're using a noun phrase for everything, all the items should be a noun. You should use a noun phrase for everything. If you're using verbs or if you're using a complete sentence or depending on your situation, the grammar of each one of those items in the list should be the same. So sometimes people will say, for example, I like cooking and reading and watch a movie. The problem here is I've used cooking, reading, so these are two, like I'm using the gerund form, so they're essentially like nouns. So cooking and reading, and watch a movie. So watch a movie sounds similar, like these are three hobbies. I like to watch a movie, for example. It sounds kind of similar. We don't have a problem in communication really. But grammatically, watch a movie is different from cooking or reading. So to fix this, we say, I like cooking, reading, and watching movies. So just make sure that everything that you're introducing in your list matches grammatically, and this won't be a problem for you. So yeah, if you're using all nouns, make sure you use all nouns. So just be aware of that. That's something that many native speakers run into as a problem sometimes. So those are 10 mistakes that native speakers make. Have you ever noticed a native speaker making a mistake? It happens. It really does happen from time to time. Let us know in the comments. Or if there's another mistake that you feel that you make a lot, let us know too, and maybe we can talk more about that in the future. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Top Words. If you liked this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel too. And also check us out at EnglishClass101.com where you can find more resources, more grammar, audio, worksheets, all kinds of good stuff as well. I will see you in the next episode. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, welcome back to Know Your Verbs. My name is Alicia, and in this episode, we're going to talk about the verb leave. Let's get started. Let's start with the basic definition of the verb leave. It is to go away from someone or something. Examples. We're leaving the house in 10 minutes. Our boss usually leaves the office at 7. Now let's take a look at the conjugations for this verb. Present, leave, leaves. Past, left. Past participle, left. Progressive, leaving. Now let's talk about some additional meanings for this verb. The first meaning is to end a romantic relationship or to abandon someone. Examples. I'm leaving you. His wife left him last year. So in the first example sentence, I'm leaving you, this is actually a very common expression seen in movies, in like serious breakups. I'm leaving you. It's often, I feel, more often used among married couples than couples that are just dating, but people who are married. It's like they've been together for a very long time and one person decides they're finished. So I'm leaving you. So we see this in the progressive tense. That shows us the person has made a decision. I am leaving you. They're very, it's a very clear choice. In the second example sentence, it's past tense. His wife left him last year. That means it's finished. So their relationship has ended. The relationship ended last year. His wife left him. The second additional meaning is to let something remain in a certain condition. Let's look at some examples. I accidentally left the air conditioner on when I went to work. Don't leave the car running in the garage. So as you can see, leave in these example sentences is used to refer to kind of a negative situation, like I forgot something, was in that state or in that condition, and I left my house or I left the room. So your body physically walks away from the situation, but you have some other thing that remains in that condition. So you can think of that condition, that thing, remaining in that state. So we kind of use leave to mean remain here. So like in the first example sentence, the air conditioner remained on when I left the house for work. But when I want to emphasize that it was negative and I didn't mean to do it, it was an accident, I can say, I left the air conditioner on. That sounds much more like, I forgot. Too bad. In the second example sentence, it's a command. Don't leave the car running in the garage. So running means on, like in the turned on state, in the turned on condition. don't leave the car running means don't allow the car to continue running, to continue being on when it's in the garage. It's dangerous. So to leave something on or to leave something running is like to allow that to continue in that state, but usually because it's like an accident, or it's often because of an accident. The third additional meaning is to put something somewhere in the process of going away. So that means as you're leaving a location, you place something somewhere. So it's like you're doing two things at the same time. You're moving away from a place, and when you do that, you put something somewhere. So let's look at some examples of this. She left dinner for us in the oven. We left a package next to your door. So in the first example sentence, she left dinner for us in the oven. There are two things happening there. One, the she in the situation has departed from the situation. Maybe this person, she went to work or she went to bed. She's no longer involved in the situation. However, when she departed, she did something else. She put dinner for the other people in the oven. So there are two things happening there. She leaves the situation and she puts dinner in the oven. The second example sentence, we left a package next to your door, is the same thing. So the we in this situation left the location, past tense, so they went away from the location. And as they did in that moment, when they decided to depart, they left a package. They put a package, placed a package next to the listener's door. So there are two things happening in this situation too. So when you say, I left something for you, they left something for us, there are actually two things that happened there. They departed and they put something somewhere. The fourth additional meaning is to give someone responsibility. Examples. Leave it to me. She left me with these reports. So here we're seeing leave to mean responsibility or receipt of responsibility. In the expression leave it to me, which is very common, it means let me take care of it. Let me deal with it. I'll do it. No problem. Like it's my responsibility. Please give me the responsibility. Leave it to me. In the second example sentence, she left me with these reports. It's like she gave the speaker responsibility for these reports. She left me with these, asked me to take care of them. In this case too, I suppose you could say like she came to the speaker's desk, gave the speaker reports to take care of, and then walked away. There could be a double meaning there, I suppose. But to leave someone with a task tends to mean like they're left with some kind of responsibility. They have a responsibility to accept in that case. Let's go on to some variations for this verb. The first variation is to leave somebody or something out. This means to not include somebody or to not include something. Examples. She left out the spicy ingredients of the dish she was making. You always leave me out of your parties. So to leave something out means you do not include something. So a key to understanding how to use this variation is that it's something that was originally there and you make a choice, or the subject of the sentence in this case, there's a choice made not to include that thing. We see this in the first example sentence. She left out the spicy ingredients in the dish she was making. That means in the recipe, there were spicy ingredients to use. However, she chose not to use those ingredients. She left out those spicy ingredients in the dish. So there was a choice made. In the second example sentence, it's about a person. Someone says, you always leave me out of your parties, which means you never include me in your parties. So you always leave me out of your parties is like, we are friends, I am here, but you make a choice not to include me in your parties. You always leave me out of your parties. So this is when there's a choice made not to include someone or something. The next variation is to leave somebody or something behind. This means to move away from a place without somebody or without something. So the nuance is often like you were forced to, like not take that thing, or you forgot that thing. Examples. Leave him behind. We'll come back later. She left a pair of shoes behind because there wasn't room in her suitcase. So in the first example sentence, maybe it's something you've seen in like an action movie. The expression leave him behind. It means like go away from this place without him. So like a person who is injured, for example, in an action movie. They can't walk or they're really sick. You might hear the expression leave him behind or leave her behind. It means go forward without that person. And then we follow this with the expression we'll come back later. So meaning we'll come back to help this person later. In that case, then, it's that there's some situation which makes it difficult to continue with that person at this time. So the advice is to leave a person behind, like to move forward without that person. In the second example sentence, she left behind a pair of shoes because they wouldn't fit in a suitcase. It's like she's forced. She has a limited amount of space, so she was forced to leave her shoes behind. She was forced to go away without this pair of shoes because there was not enough room in her suitcase. So we can use leave behind to show kind of this maybe negative or somewhat sad or unhappy situation in some way. So to leave someone behind, usually not something you want to do, but that you must do. So those are a few new ways, I hope, for you to use the verb leave. If you have any questions or comments, if you know a new way of using the verb leave, or if you want to practice making an example sentence with this verb, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Of course, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you as you study English. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Know Your Verbs, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, welcome back to Know Your Verbs. My name is Alicia, and in this episode, we're going to talk about the verb go. Let's get started. Let's start with the basic definition of the verb go. The basic definition of go is to travel to another location. Let's look at some examples. I'm going to the beach this weekend. He went to work at 8 a.m. today. Now let's look at the conjugations for this verb. Present, go, goes. Past, went. Past participle, gone. Progressive, going. Now let's talk about some additional meanings for this verb. The first additional meaning of go is to say. To say. It's like using said, but in informal setting. Let's look at some examples. I go, how are you? And my boss goes, not good. She goes, I can't believe it. And I went, me neither. So this use of go shows us how people report speech. We use go, or the past tense went, to communicate the same thing we do when we use the verb say or said. So in these example sentences, I've used go or goes or went to report speech. So when you're reporting speech, which means you're sharing something someone else has said, you can use go, goes, or went to describe that instead of say or says or said. So when I say something like, my boss went or I went, it means I said or my boss said. We just use go, we choose to use go to make the situation sound a little bit more casual. So it's an informal way to report speech. You can use this in exactly the same way you would use say or said in past tense. The next additional meaning is to combine well or to commonly be found together. Some examples. Sweet and spicy flavors often go together. I don't think that shirt goes with those pants. So this use of go means to combine two or more things together, or like to combine them together well. Some of you might think this means match, but actually match and go are a little bit different. We see this in the second example sentence, like I don't think that shirt goes with those pants. Actually, this does not mean match. To go is different from to match. To match refers to two things that are exactly the same.
to go does not mean that these two things are the same. It means these two things combine well. So when we say those pants and that shirt go together, or those go, for example, that just means that they combine nicely. They combine well together. So when you use go in this way, those things go together, it means that they are nice together. They combine in a nice or pleasant or pleasing way. The next additional meaning is to be called by a name. Some examples. His name is William, but he goes by Bill. Her name is Elizabeth, and she went by Beth when she was in school. So this is a very common way of explaining someone's name or someone's nickname. We see this in the first example sentence. His name is William, but he goes by Bill, meaning he is called the name Bill. So we use go to talk about the way that we refer to another person, like what should I call you, or what do you go by? Those two expressions have the same meaning. So in this case, he goes by Bill. So we use that by there to show the name that we use to refer to a person. He goes by Bill. In the second example sentence, we see a past tense example of this. So when she was in school, she went by Beth. So we use past tense there because it refers to a past situation. She went by Beth. So you can use this if you have a nickname or if you want to introduce someone who has a nickname. So for example, William and Bill are very common in terms of names and nicknames. William is the proper name, Bill is the nickname. Elizabeth and Beth are another common combination. So if you have a nickname, you can use this to talk about how you prefer to be named or how you prefer to be called, I suppose. So you can say, I go by plus your nickname. So this go means to be called something or to be named something. The next additional meaning is to belong in a specific place. Some examples. Where do the office supplies go? All the kitchen tools go in this cabinet. So this use of go refers to usually items that belong somewhere specific. So in your home or in your workplace or in the place where you study, you probably have some locations where there are just kind of like designated areas for things. So when you want to talk about where like your kitchen supplies are supposed to be placed, you can say, for example, plates go in this cabinet, or glasses go in that cabinet, or office supplies go in the desk drawer. So when you want to talk about the specific location for an object, you can use go to describe that here. This goes in that location. Now let's move along to some variations with the verb go. The first variation is to go through with something. This means to complete something, often challenging or scary, as planned. Some examples. Are you going to go through with this haircut? She went through with her plans to quit her job. So we use go through with something when we want to describe a situation that's difficult or maybe unpleasant or it's challenging. The first example sentence is a little bit funny. It's about a haircut. Are you sure you want to go through with this haircut? Means are you sure you want to do this thing as you have planned to do? So the speaker is expressing his or her doubts in this case. So perhaps the haircut is like something crazy. It's like maybe not work appropriate, whatever. So the speaker is saying, are you sure you want to do this? You've made this plan, but are you sure you want to go through with it? Are you sure you want to complete this thing that you have planned? In other words, the speaker is questioning, is this a good idea or not? So to go through with means to complete that thing. In the second example sentence, it's going through with quitting a job. So she went through with her plans to quit her job means she completed that task or she completed that challenge as she had planned to do. So you can use go through with when you want to kind of give the feeling of something that's difficult, or maybe it's kind of challenging, kind of tough, or maybe the situation could be a little uncomfortable in some way. So to go through with something. The next variation is to go through. This means to experience something, but usually for a hardship, something difficult. Let's look at some examples. It's hard for us to understand what he's going through. You went through some really hard times last year. Okay, so please note, to go through and to go through with something are very different expressions. So to go through with something was the first variation we talked about. To go through, however, refers to just experiencing a hardship, experiencing a life challenge. To go through with something refers to completing a plan, but that's related to a challenge. So to go through something does not have any nuance. There's no feeling of a plan at all. It's just a kind of negative or tough life experience. In the first example sentence, it's hard for us to understand what he's going through. Another way of saying going through there is it's hard for us to understand what he is experiencing with a very negative feeling about it. It's hard for us to understand his negative life experience right now. So you can think of this going through as showing that someone is experiencing difficulty. In the second example sentence, you went through some really hard times last year. It shows that a person did have difficulties in the past. They had a troubling or a challenging experience in the previous year, but they were able to overcome that, or things improved since that time. So to go through refers to kind of passing through or continuing through some kind of negative or difficult life experience. So that's everything for this lesson. I hope that you found a new way of using the verb go. There are actually a lot of different ways of using the verb go, a lot of different phrasal verbs. So if you want to know more about this verb, I highly recommend checking a dictionary. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some sentences with this verb, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Of course, if you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this episode, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, welcome back to Know Your Verbs. My name is Alicia, and in this episode, we're going to talk about the verb stay. Let's get started. Let's start with the basic definition of the verb stay. The basic definition of stay is to remain in a place or situation. Some examples. We're staying at a beach house. She stayed in that job for 4 years. Now let's look at the conjugations for this verb. Present, stay, stays. Past, stayed. Past participle, stayed. Progressive, staying. Now let's talk about some additional meanings for this verb. The first additional meaning is to continue to do something or to continue a condition. Some examples. Our supermarket stays open until midnight. I'm so tired, I can barely stay awake. So this use of stay doesn't refer to a location, not a place, but actually a condition, or that something is continuing, some state is continuing. In the first example sentence, we see stays open. The supermarket stays open until midnight. That means the condition of open, the status of open. So like a business is open, we can go to that business. That status, that condition, continues until midnight. So the supermarket stays open is how we communicate that naturally. In the second example sentence, we see, I can barely stay awake. I can barely stay awake. So here, the condition is awake. So awake means not asleep. So our eyes are open, we are doing things, we are awake. So when we say, I can barely stay awake, it means it's really difficult for me to continue being awake. It's really difficult for me to keep my eyes open because I'm really tired. So to stay in this way refers to a continued situation or a continued state. The second additional meaning is to live in a place for a short time as a visitor. Examples. I'm staying in Sao Paulo for 3 days. He always stays at the same hotel in Dubai. So this use of stay refers to when we stop in a city or we stop in a country and we're there for a short period of time. So we don't use this for long periods. Like we don't use this when we're living in a country. We use stay to talk about short trips, short visits to a specific place. When we want to talk about the place where we live, we do not use stay. We use the verb live to describe that. When we're traveling somewhere, however, we use this verb to talk about either the city or the country where we're planning to visit, or we use it to talk about the type of accommodation. So this could be like a hotel, an Airbnb, an inn, a motel. So you can use it to talk about the type of accommodation as well. In the first example sentence, we see a city. I'm staying in Sao Paulo for 3 days. So that means that's a short-term visit, a 3-day visit. So we can use stay to describe that. In the second example sentence, it's about accommodations. So he always stays in the same hotel in Dubai. So that means the type of accommodation. So we use it to talk about that short-term visit. So you can use this when you travel. Let's move along to some variations with this verb. The first variation is to stay out of something. This means to refrain from being involved in something. Let's look at some examples. Stay out of this argument. She was smart to stay out of the debate. Okay, so to stay out of something means to not be included in something, but we choose not to be included in something. The first example sentence, though, is actually a command. Stay out of this argument. So that's probably like a piece of advice, or it could be a command, I suppose. But stay out of this is usually like kind of a forceful or a rather strong expression we can use to say, don't participate, don't get involved in this. There could be a number of reasons for that. But to stay out of something means to refrain from trying to participate in something. In the second example sentence, she was smart to stay out of the debate. It means she was smart to not try to participate in the debate. So we use this for situations that it might be uncomfortable to participate in, or it might be really challenging to participate in. So the first example sentence is an argument, so it's probably an uncomfortable situation. That's why the command stay out of this argument might be used. In the second example sentence, it could be a really sensitive debate or a difficult discussion, so we could say she was smart to stay out of that. So it kind of has this feeling of maybe a difficult, challenging, or an uncomfortable situation that you want to avoid for some reason. So to stay out of something. The next variation is to stay in. To stay in. This means to remain in one's home. Let's look at some examples. Let's stay in and watch a movie. Thanks for the invitation, but I'm going to stay in tonight. So this stay in, we can consider this stay in as the opposite of go out. So when we have like a weekend or a holiday, we typically have like two choices. We can stay in our homes or we can go out of our homes and do something else out there. So when we say I'm going to stay in, it means I'm not going to go out and do anything. We commonly use this as an excuse for not doing something. So I'm going to stay in tonight. Let's stay in and watch a movie. It means let's stay at home. Let's go home and watch a movie. Or maybe if you are at home, you can say let's stay here. Let's stay in and watch a movie. The second example sentence is a great example of how this is commonly used. Thanks for the invitation, but I'm gonna stay in tonight. That means that's my plan. My plan is to stay in my home. In other words, I'm not going to go out. I'm going to stay inside my home tonight. Let's move along to the next variation. The next variation is to stay over, to stay over. This means to stay at someone else's house. Some examples. You can stay over at our house tonight. Can we stay over? So to stay over refers to spending the night at someone else's house. It might be easier for you to remember stay over if you think of this as stay over the night or stay overnight. So it usually means one night only. So if, for example,
the weather is really terrible and it becomes dangerous to drive on a road, you might use the second example sentence, like, can we stay over? Like, the weather has gotten terrible. Can we stay over? So you might make like a request like this to stay at a friend's house or to stay at someone's house. Children actually use this a lot. So when you're in maybe elementary school or perhaps junior high school, you may want to stay over at a friend's house. So friends maybe stay over at one another's houses. Kids play together, stay up late, watch movies, whatever. So we use stay over to talk about just that one kind of like friendly stay, like people stay just for one night. We don't use this for hotels, really. You might hear this used when people are talking about like taking a road trip, like moving quickly from city to city, like I'm going to stay over in city A, then move to city B, stay over in city C, perhaps, I suppose. But we tend to use this more when we're talking about sleeping at a friend's house for one night. Okay, so I hope that you found a new way of using the verb stay. Actually, there are a lot more ways to use this verb. There are a lot of phrasal verbs that involve stay. So if you have some questions or if you want to learn more, please check out a dictionary. I highly recommend that. Of course, if you have questions or comments or want to practice making an example sentence, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Also, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, subscribe to our channel if you have not already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Know Your Verbs, and we'll see you again soon. Bye!
Access your free language gifts right now before they expire. First, our brand new visual flashcards. Want to speak more of the language? You'll need to learn more words. And with our new printable visual flashcards, you'll know over 1,500 words. Just download and print them out. Second, the must-know idioms writing worksheet. You'll master the most common idioms by writing them out with this free gift of the month. Download it now for free. Third, how to talk about your phone plan in your target language. You'll learn how to say cell phone, contract, data plan, and more. Fourth, animal sounds vocabulary. Learn how dogs, cats, and cows sound in your target language with this quick 1-minute lesson. Fifth, the top 50 marine animals and fish. How well do you know animal names in your target language? With this lesson, you'll learn how to say shark, whale, dolphin, and much more. And sixth, want an app that teaches you the language through conversations? Download Innovative Language Learning for free for the Android, iPhone, and iPad. You'll unlock bite-sized lessons that teach you practical conversations and get you speaking in minutes. To get your gifts and language learning resources, click the link in the description below. Download them right now before they expire. Hey everyone, welcome to the Monthly Review, the monthly show on language learning, where you discover new learning strategies, motivational tips, study tools, and resources. By the way, all the lessons and bonuses you're about to see can be downloaded for free on our website. So click the link in the description right now to sign up for your free lifetime account. Okay, today's topic is new topics and talking points, the easiest way to increase your speaking time. If you want to speak your target language better, you'll often hit two specific ceilings that you'll need to get around. The good news is, one of them is easy to get around, and it involves picking up new talking points. That's why today you'll discover 1. The ceilings you'll hit when speaking in your target language, and 2. But first, if you're looking for new free language resources and downloads, here are this month's new lessons and resources. Be sure to download these now before we take them down in a few days. First, our brand new visual flashcards. Want to speak more of the language? You'll need to learn more words. And with our new printable visual flashcards, you'll know over 1,500 words. Just download and print them out. Second, the must-know idioms writing worksheet. You'll master the most common idioms by writing them out with this free gift of the month. Download it now for free. To get your free resources, click the link in the description below right now. They're yours to keep forever. Now to today's topic. New topics and talking points, the easiest way to increase your speaking time. Part 1. Ceilings you'll hit when speaking in your target language. When you start speaking in your target language, one of the most common ceilings you'll run into is running out of things to say. Has that ever happened to you? But another problem that can happen is you'll get good at some conversations, like talking about yourself or why you're learning the language. But how is that a problem if you get good at it? Well, if you get hit with another topic that you can't talk about, then it's game over. Just imagine you're talking almost fluently about topic A. You're impressing the native speakers and everything is going great. But then topic B comes along and you start struggling. The native speakers will quickly realize your language skills are not quite up there. And even though you're quite good, you're still a beginner. It's kind of ironic, right? You can speak almost fluently with one topic, but you freeze up with another. This happens quite often with beginners. So how do you get past this? As a general rule, if you want to extend your speaking time, there are two things you can do. Number one, learn to talk about new topics or talking points. Or two, learn to talk more in depth about what you already know. The second one comes slowly over time as you learn new words and grammar patterns. So if you're actively learning a language, you're always working on the second one. But the short-term, easy way to speak more is to have more talking points and be able to talk about new topics. How? Part 2. How to apply this learning tactic. If you want to be able to talk about new topics and have more talking points, then that's exactly where our 1-minute conversation cheat sheets come in. These cheat sheets serve as a primer for new topics and conversations. You'll get brief dialogues for topics like weather, hobbies, and more, so that you can use them in conversations. The second way you can build up your list of talking points is to simply write out topics you like your hobbies or music, or topics you may anticipate in future conversations. Then look for lessons around these topics inside the lesson library. You'll learn conversations that you can then use in real life with native speakers. You can also check out our can-do lessons in the lesson library. These can-do lessons cover specific topics like introducing yourself, talking about yourself, your family, and more. But unlike the cheat sheets, with the lessons, you'll get to hear entire dialogues. You'll hear the native pronunciation, learn how to talk about these topics more in depth, and practice speaking. Again, the goal here is to expose you to new talking points and topics, new conversations, so that you can use them in real life, so that you're not just good at talking about one thing in your target language, and so you can boost your speaking time by a bit. Thank you for watching this episode of Monthly Review. Next time, we'll talk about how to ramp up your language progress for the second half of the year. If you enjoyed these tips, hit the like button, share the video with anyone who's trying to learn a language, and subscribe to our channel. We release new videos every week. And if you're ready to finally learn language the fast, fun, and easy way and start speaking from your very first lesson, get our complete learning program. Sign up for your free lifetime account right now. Click the link in the description. See you next time. Bye!
Great work! Here's a reward. Speed up your language learning with our PDF lessons. Get all of our best PDF cheat sheets and ebooks for free. Just click the link in the description.